Welcome everybody to the CNC with Dave show. Tonight we're going to be talking about G-code. Everybody uses it, and not a whole lot of folks know really what it is. So we're going to try to talk about some of it. Some of it's not real important to know, but other parts are handy to know. So I've got a panel of experts I've assembled tonight. I've got Mr. Rob Schuster. And also, go ahead and say something, Rob.
Hi, guys. Formal introduction now, or you want me to wait?
And by the way, if this ends up being a really boring show, we're going to blame Rob because he's the one that recommended we do a show on G-code. So
if you can do an hour and a half on drill bits, you can spend some time on G-code too.
There you go. we can make a show out of pretty much anything, I think. I've also got a professional CNC machinist, Juan Lopez, so we should be able to get a lot of good G-code stuff out of him.
Well, there's not a whole lot, but whatever I can answer, I'll try to.
Okay, and of course, my good buddy Javi is going to be talking G-code and helping me watch the chat and all. And
hey, folks, happy to see everyone.
We've got, man, everybody, it jumped up because we didn't have near that many waiting a while ago, and now it's jumped way up there. Thank y'all for tuning in. We've got to, I got to do a shout out real quick. You know, I always got to give a plug for somebody or a shout out or something before we get started here. But I got an email, and I like to share these emails when people send me pictures. But this is a gal named Tiffany K. And she had bought the plans. I don't know if y'all know, I sell plans on my website for different projects I've done. But she bought the plans for the bench / picnic table thing. That's my #1 seller as far as plans. And she sent a couple of pictures. I thought, what the heck? I'm going to show them with, share them with you guys. This is a picture of it unfolded, where it serves as a picnic table.
You're not sharing, Dave.
Up. I know. I'm still new to this stuff. All right, hold on here. Let me get back to getting ahead of myself here. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there it is. It's over on the thing. Okay, so this is the bench / picnic table in the folded out like a picnic table. And she sent these, and she said, "Hey Dave, we epoxied and varnished the picnic table, and I thought you might like to see the finished project. Thanks again. Feel free to share, Tiffany." So these are that's what it looks like unfolded. And the one I made I did a video for one, and I just used some old raggedy green paint that I had on hand. Mine doesn't look near that good. Let's see if I can find the other. And then here it is folded up as a bench. So those things are pretty cool. Like I said, that's my most popular plans that I sell on my website. And every once in a while, somebody will send me some really cool pictures like that. So very good job, Tiffany. All right, let me get lost here. There we go. All right, let's talk G-code. Rob, I'm going to make you start since you started this. Tell us about G-code, Rob.
You might regret making me in charge of that. I do not claim to be an expert in any way. I just that's an interesting topic because we all need to know about it. I think some basics. I don't write much G-code, but I like to find things in the code and understand what's going on. Should we? I posted that thing today on how to do that Notepad++, how to look at the G-code that way.
Yeah, if you want to screen share and show something.
How do I do that?
Over on the left-hand side, there's the second one down should say screen share.
There we go.
And Dave will lock it on you.
I will. There we go.
Okay, so let's reduce that too. Okay, so this is Notepad++. There's a link on your website on the download files, and you should download that. And once you have there's a file out there to add the language for different things. I work in IT, so a lot of these codes I use like XAML and these things at work and whatever. But you can add your own custom ones. So we're going to find a new one, import, and G-code. There it is right there. And that's all there is to it. Now we might have to actually close this and open it again for it to actually show up here. Yeah, let me close it and open it. And we'll tell it to use G-code. And now it's a lot easier to find things in here. Your comments are green. A lot of your G stuff is blue. You can customize this if you want. I didn't write this one myself. I did tweak it. The guy who wrote this originally, I don't know, everywhere I use comments at work, comments are always green, so I tweaked that to change a few things. But if you're in a 300,000 line G-code file, it's nice to be able to see the things pop out at you when you're scanning through real fast. So this does help a lot, I think.
Yeah, Rob, that should probably be the first thing we mention to folks, that if you don't already know this, when you post, like say you post a program with VCarve Pro, and just like up there at the top of his, he says Flathead Engine and it's in parentheses. Any note you want to put anywhere in that program, you can put it to help you remember something. Just put it in parentheses like that. And what the program, as far as running the code, it just kind of skips over and ignores it. It's just there for you to, help to remind you something.
Yep. Just inside parentheses, that's all you need. And, well, you were talking earlier, if you've got a long project of different kinds of things going on in there, you want to separate it out, I'll even do that, and I'll put 10 lines of stuff there so it really pops out when you're scanning through. So you can, if I'm scrolling through and suddenly see these rows all green, it sticks out real easy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the code I used the other day for that Harley Davidson engine project.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of that, I broke my bit, which was my own fault. You always do your 3D, you hog out your stuff first and then roughing passes. And I thought I was being smart using a 3/4 inch end mill to hog out stuff faster. And it actually, there were some little pockets that were went down 3/4 inch, and so the end mill didn't hog out those pockets. So suddenly that tiny ball nose tried to pop down 3/4 inch, 100 inches per minute, and it snapped that thing right off because I didn't do a good enough job roughing. So.
Oh yeah, I understand. Yeah, it never got in there deep enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it was trying to cut 3/4 inch on hardwood.
I got to tell you, that's one thing that I wish that, I don't know if any of the other programs, but I wish VCarve or any of the Vectric products had that, is the ability to go different various levels of carving out. Because I would love to use, like you, a 3/4 inch drill bit, then go to half and then go to quarter, and I don't mind the bit changes.
That would save so much time.
Yeah.
There's actually a process. It's called, is it test? There's some acronym they have. I forgot. You caught me off guard. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but some kind of machining where it's, in theory you can do that, but VCarve doesn't do it. But man, that would save some time, because I do sometimes the hogging out the stuff takes longer than the 3D finish.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, I'm just going to show how I found my spot, because the pit broke and I was away, so it ran for half an hour after that. I was inside drinking coffee.
Rob, if I can interrupt for a second, Becco's asking what did you use to have the commands in different colors?
Oh, that's what we just did. Yeah, that's the so this is the Notepad++, and we imported that, the language thing. So I'm going to go to something else. No, how do I get back away from that? Oops, language.
What is Notepad++? It's just a custom program there?
It's a free program out there. A lot of software developers use it. and it's free. I just
Gotcha.
go to Notepad++. It's just like kind of Notepad, which we all use. Well,
Right.
I use it a lot, but Notepad. And let's just open this side by side here. Open. And
Got it. Okay, I'm putting a link down.
And of course this, oh, I'm looking for just text products. Of course it's not there. So there's the same exact file here. Let me change this one back to show G-code language. It takes it a while because it's 300,000 lines right here. So there's the same thing side by side. It just makes it a lot easier to find things in there. And like I say, when I broke that bit off, I was somewhere in the middle, and it was somewhere around Y 1.6 inches above center there. So the Y I'm looking for like 1.6. So Control F, Y 1.6. That's about where I broke, and I could find it again. And but that's actually on the left side because X is negative, so I'd go down to the next one. So right about here is where I would start it again. And if you guys do much 3D stuff, I don't know if everyone knows this. The Y part only moves up a smidge, then it goes left to right, just X and Z up and down across the whole path, and Y moves up again 1/100 of an inch, basically, because I have an 1/8 inch bit at 8% step over. So 1.61, 1.62, 1.63. So all it's doing is going left and right, back and forth, then Y moves up 1/100 of an inch and goes back and forth again, and that's how it does 3D toolpath. So it's pretty easy to find where you are if you just can find that Y, if that makes any sense at all.
Yep.
And that was my project the other day. And then I wrote my own. I've written 2 things ever in G-code that are actually start to finish. Let's do the other one first. I'll just talk through the steps on this one, how this one works. This is the touch plate. I'm sure it's pretty much identical to what they would use in Mach 3. I use Linux CNC, but it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And my dog's in the background barking, if anyone can hear that.
Yep.
So normally G-code works in your grid, your XYZ grid, but G91 switches it, so instead of the grid, you can say X1, it'll move your X-axis 1 inch over. So they call it relative coordinates. And G38 means drop till you touch that's a sensor for the probe, drop till you hit something. And Z-1 means it's going to drop 1 inch, or it's going to error if you get past that. And F6 means 6 inches per minute. F is always speed. And then when it hits that plate, it pops up a little bit, 0.04. So F10 is speed again, 10 inches per minute. G1 is move, and Z 0.04. Then again, we do the same. Go ahead.
No, at a feed rate.
Oh, yes, yeah. At feed rate, F10 is feed rate. That's what F stands for. Speed. I always thought speed, but of course S stands for spindle speed. And again, we're going to drop down again, touch the probe. And this time it's going to air out after 0.1 inch because we only popped up 0.4, so it shouldn't hit that. So, and F1, so 1 inch per minute. So it's going to drop real slow till it touches that plate. Set your Z. Here's where we switch back to the XYZ coordinate system. And here's the code where it actually it sets the X or the Z height. And my touch plate is 0.0775 thick. So it touches that plate, and here's the offset, and it knows that it's that far away from the base, and we pop back up to a 1/4 inch up. And that's the command for a touch plate. It's probably pretty boring if you don't have a touch plate, but it's kind of cool. When you build that yourself, it's kind of gratifying.
Yeah, so yours comes down twice.
Right. Once a little faster, and then the second time real slow.
Yeah, I used a script that was done by I can't think of the guy's name, Guru Brew. He's got his YouTube channel is Guru Brew.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not doing XYZ plate. It's just a Z touch off plate, but it just comes down once and touches and then goes back up. It's not as
yeah. I've had a couple of I'm trying to remember where it was. It was one of my machines. I think it was a laser engraver. Did it twice. Did a fast one and then a slower one for more precision at the end.
Yep.
This one here is just the one time and it goes right back up. But that's a great idea to do for that little extra level of precision.
Jim Senecola over there says, once you define the G code as your language, does anything show up? He's talking about the Notepad++.
Yeah. We switch back to.
If you load in a G code file or a G code text file, and then
in theory, it will always, if anything, if the extension of the file is NGC, then it'll always open up this way, in theory. Now, let's go to define language. I'll show you how you set that up. If some machines don't use NGC, they use something else.
Yeah,
right
what some of the more popular extensions are, aside from TXT, is one is G code, the actual extension G code.
Yeah.
Another one is .tap.
NC.
NC is another one. There's another one I had here for mine.
Yeah.
And then certain custom programs actually use a very basic version of G code, but they throw in a header of their own choosing and use a completely different extension, proprietary programs and stuff. But it's all basic.
So right here's where you put the extension. So if you I then tap, like you said, NC. So if you open up a file with any one of those three extensions, in theory it'll always open with the program, those color markings.
Can you drop multiple extensions in there?
Yeah, I just did. There's 3 in here now. Cool. So NC, tap, and NGC. Just put a space.
Right,
and then it's kind of cool the way it works. I mean, like here's G0, G1. So it finds this anywhere if it's the prefix, the first line or first thing after space, it'll be blue color. So if you don't like blue, you want to change it to purple, you click that, you change it to purple or whatever, click a button. And this one, if it's G17 or G20, those codes there, that one is purple. And these other ones, I don't know what color, the M codes, those are purple. And then there's one for comments, and I like the comments to be green. So if it starts with the semicolon, the // or inside the parentheses start and end, it'll mark it as green. And if you want to customize it, you can. I don't know why you'd really want to, but it's that easy. It really is simple.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I don't know, the other code I've written before was the keyhole, but actually I didn't write it all myself, obviously, but here's my comment. Well, I didn't want to open it in G code.
I was looking at that when you opened that a while ago. What exactly does all that do? I wrote a program to put a keyhole in, and it was just like half a dozen lines.
When it dropped straight down, I didn't like that. I wanted it to be kind of a helical arc. What do you call it? You know what that is? Like
sure.
a spiral?
A spiral down, yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is there. And I didn't write that, of course. I just went into
Vectric and let it write it for you.
Yeah, you went to, let me see. Let's open a new.
It's almost like a thread mill type of a
exactly
code command.
Come on. And all I did was, I knew it was at point. It was at I moved to the left to where it's 1, so I put my center of the thing at -1, and I wanted it to be 0.3 deep. When you're sharing stuff, this slows down your computer a lot. This is much slower than it normally is.
Hangouts in general is a very big resource hog.
I'm lagging super bad.
Yeah. I did a profile, and I told it to ramp a spiral, and that should do it. No, I guess not. Oh, you have to. No. Well, of course, when you try to show this to somebody, it's going to fail on you. Do I have too big of a bit? What bit do I have? I have a too big of a bit. Let's.
That's why live shows are fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's just run this. Oops. You can see how it spirals down like that.
Yep.
You can kind of see that there. It's not real great color, but that spiral. And I just save that G code and I cut and paste that into my existing one because I wanted a little bigger hole. I wanted to spiral down because I don't know, going straight down, dropping my keyhole. It doesn't like to drop straight down. It was binding a little bit and not good.
When working on pockets, that helps out a lot too, as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Instead of just going straight.
I've gotten used to spiraling everything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys want to talk about that later or not. Whoops. You notice how long that code was. The new version 9.5 and vCarve, they now have helical arcs, they call it. But you have to go and edit your files in the your default files. Let me share one more time. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going back and forth here. I can't. So we want to save. You have your drop-down list of all your processors. You have to modify the post processor to do that, which I don't have that one in here. I do. But you have to go edit that, and it's not that hard to tweak once I figured out how to do it. But I had to actually ask the question to the Aspire people, and you have to tweak it yourself. But that's kind of a cool thing, also, if you really want to save some lines of code, because just that thing was a couple hundred lines, just that circle. And if you do that helical arc, it takes it down to like 4 or 5 lines. But in the end, who really cares? It's
yeah. Okay. Well, I see now why that was so many lines of code, because I'm thinking, what in the heck is he doing? Mine was like a half a dozen lines of code.
Yeah.
But when I do a keyhole, I always, because I'm usually doing it on the back of the project where you're going to hang it on the wall.
Yep.
I just set the keyhole bit right where I want that hole. So my code is simple. It's down, it moves up a little bit, comes back and right back out to, it's it. Just about 3 or 4 lines of code.
Yeah, I got fancy. I marked my center spot where I actually when I balance it, we're going to balance that piece so I know it's where it is. Mark that. I drop down to that point, move left 1 inch, drop down, move right 2 inches, left 2 inches, back up into 0, and it's done. So because I'm always hanging. I cut those once and I missed the center point and it wouldn't hang level. So
yeah,
learn from errors.
Yeah, that's when you fold over some Scotch tape and stick it at the bottom of the thing. Yeah. Stick it on the wall. So
no one's gonna look at the back anyway. Who cares?
Okay. Let's while we got a big crowd out there, Javi, you got the good radio voice. You want to do the shout outs tonight?
Absolutely. Let me get to that page here and welcome Becca Miller, Dave Mitchell, Ed Newman, Frankie from Frankie CNC, Grant Clark, Jeff Connor, Josh T, Larry Coleman, Lyle Foyt, Mark Lindsay from Mark Lindsay CNC, Ronald Ledger, Tim DeLine, and Steve Adkins are the ones that I currently see. I'm sure there are others. Welcome all.
Yep, thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what else should we talk about as far as G code?
Well, I wanted to interject something because one thing that wasn't mentioned, and just in case anybody here or in the future is listening, and for newbies, what is G code? A simple explanation is if you're starting out in CNC routing, and you're using the Vectric software, and you, because I mean, I've come across people that have actually gone through the whole process of whether building a machine or buying one, learning the software, programming it, and still they don't know exactly what G code is. G codes are in basically the lines that the computer creates, or that that Vectric or whichever program you're using creates. So it could be run in Mach 3, Linux CNC, Win CNC, whichever CAM program. So in short, it's an instruction set that tells the program where to go. And knowing G code will give you it's a benefit. You don't have to know it. We were talking about this earlier. You don't necessarily have to. That people have gone a whole machining career in their whole lives without touching G code, but it is very beneficial to have that knowledge. So for instance. You want to create a subroutine. It's just like programming a computer. You can get as extensive or as simple as you like. You want to move the in the middle of a program. You want to move the router to one position or another. Just a couple simple lines. You want to know where you're at in a certain program. Look at the G code. That's the short of it.
Does Mach 3 call it MDI also to move?
It has MDI.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover that, Javi? You're good at explaining these things.
Sure.
Just cover the basic MDI stuff.
Sure. Basically, MDI stands for manual data input, which what it does is there is a line in your program, whether it's Mach 3 and 3, Win CNC, Linux CNC. Usually it's called MDI. You actually can manually enter a G code line there. So let's say before you start your program, you want to move your machine out of your way. You type in X36 Y24, whatever the case may be with your particular machine, to get it to the far corner so you can move your stuff around. Obviously, an easy way to do this is with your pendant or something like that. But if you know how to program, if you know G code, one benefit is you can program macro buttons in your particular Mach 3, for instance, and you'll program a line of G code that'll say, okay, listen, I want you to move the computer, always move the router up first, across, and then back when I click the home button, for instance.
If you're an MDI, and let's say, in a lot of my videos, I would go to the MDI page, and I'd say, well, if you move your spindle 6 inches to the right, or whatever, when working with G coordinates as far as G54, 55, or work offsets, on my part of the video, I would use G54 GO X6.
Yep.
If you put GO, it would rapid travel, which is the speed of rapid travel set to your machine. If you put GO1 and an F of 3 or 4, it would go at a feed rate. Right. So always remember that GO is rapid travel, GO1 is at a feed rate. Yep. So if you put a feed rate after that, it'll move as fast as you want it to move.
And it's beneficial because you can reset in the middle of a program. You could use G code if you're well versed enough to reset offsets. And I mean, there's other ways to do it, obviously, but let's say you carve an entire sign and you just want to carve the whole entire sign 0.001 lower. I mean, obviously, this is just another one of 100 different ways to lower your Z by 1/1000th of an inch, but you could just type in the MDI command and continue running, or rather rerun the program. But the examples are endless. I put up a G code, M code reference, and if you're into that, then by all means, take a look at the more basic ones are just typing X, Y, or Z with 2 numbers after it, and it'll tell you if you're working with inches, well, or millimeter, whatever scale you're working at, and it'll just rapid straight over to the to that, but it could get as complex as creating a whole program with subroutines that work over and over.
Okay, I was going to back up a minute, but I think Jim Senecola's got it now. He was trying to figure out how to get it to change colors. But
yeah.
Jim, are you good there? I want to make sure you understand how to get all the fancy colors to come up. I think he's got it now. Southern Ginger's in the house. I don't know. Somebody left the door open. He got in here.
There you go.
How you doing, Zach? Yeah, one thing, talking about the MDI, I have talked before and even done videos on, if you don't want to have any kind of homing switches or limit switches, and, MDI comes in real handy to, you can say, like I always program most everything from the center of the material. So I find my center spot, I'll clamp my material down, I'll find my zero there. But if I didn't have any kind of switches and I was worried about, if it was a long run, maybe an Aztec calendar or something like that, and I was worried about power going off or losing my spot, you can move just jog the machine over to the outside part of the skeleton, really anywhere. Let's say you come to the lower left-hand corner and then even come on out another inch. You can come down there and make yourself a hole, and then all you have to do is know how far that hole is from where you just set your zero, and you do that by looking at your readout. So that's how you can find something. If you're running and the power goes off, all you got to do is come back to that hole, find that spot, and then know to manually move whatever those numbers were, and it'll get you right back to where you started.
And I've had to use MDI for I don't want to say emergencies, but yes, for some reason or another in my program, every now and then there'll be an error. Well, it'll be my fault. There'll be an error. Let's say I didn't actually figure out my Z height correctly or have it set wrong. And in the middle of the program, all of a sudden, it goes to a Z. It stops. The program crashes because of the maximum Z. It's happened to just about everybody. Well, with my particular setup, the spindle will not turn off, and the spindle is controlled by the code, which is very peculiar because the program has stopped. And even if I hit the escape key, the spindle is on. So I actually have to type M7 to turn the spindle off manually. And I mean, there are buttons. Obviously, I could go on the thing, but that's something that I found very useful.
Yeah, real quick. Alan Kreifels was talking about. He says he uses offsets constantly with the various jigs that he's installed. E10, L2, P1, X24, Y24.
Yeah.
Juan, would you take that one and explain that line of code and what it's doing there for the rest of the viewers?
Sure. Well, the G10 lines are basically for offsets. Yeah. So you could use G10, and L2 and P1 differs between machines as well. L2, not. Let me see.
L2 goes to a different program. Sorry, it tells it to repeat twice. At least it does on mine.
And P1 would go to.
P1 is program 1.
Yeah.
Tells it to run program 1. Let's see here. Which would go to 0001 or whatever. I mean, 0001. You could label your programs. I use L2 and P to, rather L and P to create subroutines occasionally. I was mentioning earlier to the gang if, Linux uses G54. Like, for instance, to create a simple loop. Sorry, I'm reading the chat at the same time. To create a simple loop, let me give you a basic loop. You would type O0001, and that would be your main line. You do your G00, and then you type in M98, which is basically for those programmers in you. It's like a go sub or a call to call a subroutine, and you would say P2 for program 2 and L for however many times you want it to run, and then at the end do an M30.
In this case, it changes offsets. You could run
gotcha.
G54 or G55. You could also add different lines for your height offsets other than your work offsets. And it all differs.
Yep.
I'm trying to find a good example here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Juan made a good point too. I didn't mention it, but when you're putting numbers, doing an MDI, if you put an X and Y input together, it will move diagonally in a straight line to that position. It's, you don't have to put X, move it, and then Y. I mean, you can do that, but
right.
One X and Y, and it'll move straight to it.
Yeah, one of the commands I use is let's see, I always confuse which ones it is. It's the X24 Y, well, actually Z0 X24 Y36, and that's my homing command. Not home, but the opposite of home. It takes it to the far corner to get the gantry and everything out of my way. So it'll actually go Z up. It'll go X X to the back, and then Y over to the left, and one line. That's all it takes, and you don't even have to type G00 in front of it. That's presumed in most cases, at least in my. Is that the way it is with Mach 3 as well? You don't have to type G00. Juan,
I'm sorry, for what?
When you send an X, Y, or Z, when you send a move command, you don't have to type G00 in front of it for Mach 3 either.
I'm not sure. I'm so used to just putting it in that I do it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's habit for me. I do it anyway.
Yeah.
On Linux, it remembers the last one used. So if you use G1 before, it'll do G1. If you use G0 before, it'll remember the last time.
That's what I guess. That's what I guessed happened. Is just I've never used G01 because I want everything fast and now. So
I want to take a look. If any of you guys got the chat open, I want to take a look at the question that Rob Hampton has.
Sure.
He says, if I have a 3-axis G code from my CAM software, can I insert G code to index my rotary axis? My controller is 4-axis, but his CAM is only 3-axis. Example I have for flat sides and rotary.
If he's going to use it as an indexer, he can.
Yeah, I mean, you would just put to turn it, it'd be G00A, whatever that angle is.
Yep.
Whatever you're trying to turn it.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have to, you'd have to know what you're doing to put it in there to get it to be putting it in the right spots and all that. But yeah, you could do it. That's and folks too, we've kind of focused on G code, but when I think of G code, what I really mean, I might just say G code, but I really mean G and M code, because there's a lot of M codes too.
G, M, L, F. I mean, there's
a lot of other codes you need to know besides just the G code. For example, I've put my laser on that machine I have out of my shop, and I'm running the PWM where 100 is wide open and 10 is 10% or whatever. So I can do an MDI and tell it to turn it on MO3 and then just do S10, and it'll turn the laser on, but it won't be on strong enough to burn anything. And that way I can use it to find my spot where I want to start on the center, or whatever I'm doing.
And oddly enough, S is a spindle rate, but when you incorporate it with your laser, it's nothing more than a level for an output.
Right.
And just to to see how show how different some codes will just like the P, for example. The P and GFIT, and when you use G4, it's a dwell, and you put a P, whatever you put after that is, I believe, the seconds of the dwell. Wherein is in a G10 line, the P is for your fixture offset.
Mm-hmm.
They're using, so not necessarily just because it's just P in general, it's going to be for one thing.
Right. Yeah, for an M98, which is a subroutine call, P refers to the program that it's calling, the number of the program, which will then be referenced by O something, that same number. You know,
So
and
that's
L,
another thing
and
people
L in
have
that
to
case is how many times.
look out for.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions over there? Todd CNC says, how does the controller execute the line or execute the code in the lines?
One by one, from beginning to end. It's that simple. What happens is the G code is, think of it like, for those of you who are my age and remember programming in BASIC, think of the G code as the BASIC, the Fortran, the Pascal, and think of the controller, the internal controller software as the assembly language. G code will send, for instance, you send X0, Y0 to tell it to go home. X0, Y0, Z0. The Mach 3 will read that G code in that particular line. Then the Mach 3 software will, knowing exactly the position, that the current position of all the stepper motors of the router itself, will move the necessary steps or send the necessary signals to the controller. And between the Mach 3 and the CAM software and the controller itself, that will basically send the electrical signals, the necessary number of steps to each of the steppers, which will move the spindle. That's the simplistic way of.
One thing people have to keep in mind as well is your control software may differ in G code from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in there's a Fidal out there, there's a Mazatrol, Fidal. There's different software that is very similar. Yeah, it's very similar as far as X, Y, some of the G codes, but some of them have their proprietary code, and some of them have a code that may mean a different thing.
So, that's why when you click on the list of post processors in vCarve Pro, there's 4011 of them. You know, if everything was always the same, there'd be just one post processor for everything.
Yeah, and Todd was just saying, so it just counts itself back to home. Yes, it counts itself back to home. In that example that I was giving, let's say you were at 10 inches and 10 inches. That's where the current position. And you tell it to go to 0, 0. It's going to go 10 down and 10 over to 0, 0. Now, there are the appropriate amount of steps to go those 10 inches. Now, let's say you didn't set 0, 0. Let's say you just manually moved. Let's say you were at 10 at 2020, and you just dragged your manually somehow, and it still thinks it's at 1010. Rather, it still thinks it's at 2020, but you're at 1010. It's going to move 20 over, and basically crash into it. It's either going to crash and go gong gong gong, that wonderful noise you hear, or it's going to hit a limit switch, because it only knows relative position always. Even your machine limits and everything else is nothing more. It's nothing more than a relative position to the controlling software.
Yeah,
I hope everybody got that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, Tim DeLine, I think is his name. He says some machines do read ahead. Yeah, you can set the number of lines you want it to read ahead. I mean, it's only executing line by line, but it's reading ahead because it's got to buffer that, because you know when you're running like a 3D thing, you watch that code and you can't even read it. It's going by so quick. So yeah, you can set that up to read what they call read ahead, a number of lines, but it's still only executing each line at a time. Raymond Dixon says, question, is there an easy to learn coloring book that has practical exercises in it to learn this information?
I'd say the easy way is to just draw up something super simple on Vectric or whatever, and as far as a circle or a square, and then post that out and just go line by line and study it and see which way it's moving.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I needed to put a disclaimer for that last statement I made. That applies to stepper motors. If anybody has servos is a completely different animal. The servo always has its position. It always knows its position. So it's different. Instead of the controller telling it how many steps, it tells it to go to this position. And it's more complicated, more expensive, and it's something I don't like to work with. So, but this applies to all of us who are using stepper motors.
Yeah, I hope we're not getting too deep or going over anybody's head talking about this G-code stuff, because as I mentioned before, if you're using a good quality programming software like VCarve Pro or Aspire or whatever else, you don't really have to know it. You pick the right post processor and it spits out the right code. You load it in and it runs it. You may not even know what the heck it's doing, but as long as your part comes out right, you're a happy camper. But what's nice is if you do take the time to learn a little bit about the G code, and also hit the nail on the head by just program something simple, post it, then go look at that code and watch, especially, I know there's a way in Mach 3, you guys help me because I haven't done it in forever, but I know there's a way to like step through a program where you do one line at a time. You guys remember how you do that?
Like an optional stop?
Is that what it is? Turning on that optional stop?
No, optional stops for the MO1, I think. But there is one that goes line by line.
Yeah, I know there's some way to do it. I'll have to look that up, I guess. But anyway, you can go through line by line and watch
single step. There it is.
I mean, you watch single step. Okay. You watch the you watch the machine, see where it moves, and you see what line of code's it on. When it jumps to the next line, you see where it moves, and it'll all start to make sense after that.
And another thing you could do is, unless you're actually cutting something, another thing you could do is run it in the air at, say, 2% speed or 5% speed, and you can actually look at the lines, line by line as the program is going through. It's going, oh, it's doing this command. Even when it's running fast, I'm watching the thing go up and down and up and down, and most of the time it'll be moving the X. A lot of the commands are nothing more than moving commands and G0s or G1s, and you'll see the X and Y stay in place while the Z goes up and down, and I'm noticing, oh, it's cutting. Let's say for instance you're cutting layers, and you're cutting 8 layers down. Well, you'll see the X and the Y move constantly, and you'll see Z always be at whatever, at 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and then all of a sudden it goes down to 1 inch and a quarter, whatever the case may be. So whether you're going up or down, reference. So you could actually see the movement on any program. Take a look at the lines, even quickly. You'll see the ones that stay the same, and you'll get an idea for a bit of the G code. Certainly the movement is easy. I mean, it's nothing more than X, Y, and Z positions.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Coordinates is all it is. What was that, Mike?
There are no stupid questions, Mike.
Oh, we'll see. Now, why would you want to know the G code?
Okay, here's a simple answer. It is beneficial. Let's put it this way. I have studied a lot of the G code. I don't know anywhere near as much as Juan does as far as the different commands. And I have, despite all that I know, I've yet to use it more than three different codes out of all the hundreds of different codes that I have rolling around in this head of mine. Just because I was curious. You don't need it. There are people who get by without ever knowing G code. They know how to operate their machine, and that's it. But it's beneficial, as was said earlier. It's beneficial if you do know it. In many cases, it's hard to argue this point because in most cases it's faster to reprogram the Vectric and rerun it than to actually go into an actual program and change G code. But if you do have some custom G code that you need to do,
I would say the only reason for someone to learn it is if you have a programmer that's programming for you, and if you're out there working on a machine that has tool changes, work offsets, and vice versa, different operations, just for the reason of the programmer might be programming for tool 1, accidentally puts height offset 30, and that could cause you to crash the machine. So you'd have to look through your G code, make sure that whatever's after your G43 is the right height offset and it matches your tool number. It's just for it all depends for what you're using it for.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Another good thing is a couple of times my machine has crashed, and on itself, it's sent itself an e-stop because what's it called? Z over limit. I don't know what the actual error is.
Out of parameters, something like that.
And then I don't know what in the world happened. I usually now, after making so many mistakes, I know that it's always I set the Z offset incorrectly or the height of the, well, whatever the case is, it's always been a Z issue. But I actually went to the G code just before that error happened, and you can actually see what the line was. And it goes, what the? I didn't send it to a negative number, and then I can deduce why that happened. In those rare occasions, or phone a friend.
Yeah, I want to let me get back over here. I'm going to screen share real quick and try to share what I was talking about with you guys before we went live about how when I cut the Gatton CNC kits, it's a really long program. There's 21 parts in that nest that I'm cutting. And I want to kind of show how, even though you have to do a little more work probably in VCarve Pro up front. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep. Okay.
I don't think this is the actual program I'm using, but it's one close enough. But you can see it says toolpaths used in this file, and you can see it's got part 1, pocket, and a profile, part 2's a drill, a pocket, and a profile. And there's 21 parts here. Now I use that one tool for everything so that I don't have to stop and do tool changes. But the way I set this up in VCarve Pro, and again, it was kind of a pain in the butt to do it, but I did this tool path, then this tool path, and you can see I did a lot of different tool paths. But when you come down here, now it's saying, here it's starting part 1, it's doing the pocket. Here's part 1, it's doing the profile. So if I'm running this thing and let's say I'm in the middle of here somewhere and my bit breaks. So all of a sudden now I'm just cutting air and I'm not cutting anything. I can go find out exactly just by looking at my nest, count how many parts and know what, I have them all memorized, which one is what number part. And I can come anywhere in here. See, here's part 14 and say it cut or the bit broke during the profile of this, I can come right here and I can search this real easy just using, Mach 3 to search for part 14.
Yep.
And it really helps me, because I run this all the time. That's the only reason I did it like this. Most things aren't going to be this long, but
you could start from that point again.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you could always start from any line. Now make sure you haven't. Sometimes what happens is when your CNC crashes, it'll actually the stepper motors will bump, and it will actually lose its position. So you may have to, before you start at any line, be absolutely certain that the machine's position the machine knows exactly where it is, or you manually set a known position. And that's what a lot of people do is they if they have a very, very long program, what they'll do is they'll start they'll make a reference point, and then you can always go back to that reference point. And or in my case, I have homing switches and limit switches in home, and I can always recalibrate to the home position.
Even with homing switches, my last project when I broke that bit, thank goodness I had made a spot at, well, it was -8, -8.
Yeah.
And it was reassuring because the homing switches actually worked perfect, which I wasn't sure they'd be for a 3D project. It would be good enough, but it was perfect. I was impressed how good the homing switches were.
I love homing switches.
Yeah.
Homing switches and touch plates. And in my case, I have 2 different types of touch plates, which is kind of weird. I have the touch plate that I use for the actual the Z0, whether it's at the top of the movable one, where you put it either on the top of the part or on the top of the bed, for Z0 being on the top or the bottom. But I also have the fixed touch plate, which is on the side of the machine, completely out of the way, that's always in one position, and that's used to measure the tools, because my machine I swap the tool, but the first thing it does is go over to that fixed Z, measure the tip of the tool, and then it goes back and it just continues on its merry way cutting.
Yeah, Tim over in the chat says that you have to start on a line that will give you an RPM if your spindle has stopped. So that's a good point. Now in Mach 3, when you go find that line of code and you say run from here, when you hit the cycle start button, the first thing it does is it moves to that position, and it will remind you to make sure your spindle or router is on. And in my case, mine's not controlled with Mach 3. It's just a switch.
Yep.
And a lot of people might just be reaching up and turning on the switch on the router or whatever. But yeah, you got to make sure you remember to do that.
Right.
Before you go to plunge into some material.
Yeah.
So.
In my case, the Mach 3 controls the spindle. Doesn't control the speed. I control that, but it controls the on and off. And what it'll do is it'll position itself over when you hit cycle start. It'll position itself over and then begin to a 4-second speed up, where it ramps up to speed and then continues. So I know that if in 4 seconds that thing hasn't ramped up to speed, either my spindle's unplugged or something, I'll hit that e-stop real fast before I break a bit or something.
Mm-hmm.
Alan was asking about, I'm sorry, not Alan, Jim was asking about G54 and G55, how to do offsets. I don't know if Juan wants to get into that.
Juan stepped out for a minute. I know that when I think Mach 4 or Mach 3, and probably Mach 4 too, I think it automatically remembers, when you go to exit and it asks for a fixture save, I think if you say yes, it's putting that thing in a G54, I believe, because I can go out there turn on my machine, tell it to reference all home. And in my case, mine goes back and to the right. That's where I have my reference at. And then if I was just running the same thing, like most of the time I'm running those Gatton CNC kits out there, I can just go over there and hit go to 0, and that thing will come right.
Yep.
The center of that blank.
And for those of you, I know as Rob was saying, Juan has a video, a very good video out there. I don't know if it's still out there, but I know that Juan, in 1 or 2 of Dave Gatton's shows, for those of you who have watched all 50 of them or whatever, like I have, go to the one with they're all titled. One of the old Dave CNC Gatton CNC shows has an actual Juan has a good explanation talking about G54 and G55 and G56 using the different reference marks.
Yeah. Rob Hampton says, do you use absolute or incremental in the code? Mine is absolute.
Almost always absolute, but like that example I showed for the touch plate, that one has to be incremental, but that's pretty rare.
Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see any. I don't see any other questions. Mike, you got any questions for us?
No, I think I got kind of what the gist of G-code is.
Yeah. Well, the important thing, just starting out, somebody like you know, you're going to be using the software.
And you can actually design, like kind of like HTML.
Yes.
When you do websites, it's the same thing, pretty much, right?
Yes.
So if you're new G-code, you could actually design something.
Well,
or is that just how the toolpath
no,
goes?
it's the toolpath. It's more than anything. It's the toolpath. So you can't design that for that you would use the Vectric software. You design it with VCarve Pro and or Aspire. This is more the components of it. This is more like the toolpath and knowing where the machine is moving. This is the instruction set that happens after you design your software and send it to G-code. While it's operating, while it's carving out your piece, you can actually see, and you'll experience this for the first time when you get your machine running. You'll see all the different lines of code being executed. For instance, one particular line of code, a circle is made with 4 arcs, and it's one G-code telling it to arc from this point to this point, another one from this point to this point, another one from here to here, another one. So that creates a circle. A circle doesn't just there's no circle function. It's really 4 arcs. So there's arcs, there's straight lines, there's pretty much arcs and straight lines. That's all the movement there is. Is there anything else, Juan, other than arcs and straight lines? When you break it down?
Some machines use radiuses, some machines use IJK. But yeah. But I walked in at the end of that.
Yeah, no, that's it. We were actually they were asking about G54 and G55 using offsets. You had a video. Do you still have it up?
I don't. I took a lot of my stuff not off, but into private. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, but yeah, I did have a video at one point.
And I remember you talking about it on one of the Dave Gatton shows, on one of the shows where you were featured.
Yeah, it should be on one of the Gatton shows. Yeah.
Let's see if I look that up while you guys are chatting.
Okay. Yeah. Alan Kreifel says back in the 80s, the old CNC programmers used to manually write G-code. Yeah. And I had to laugh when I was watching Rob earlier, and he was putting in. I still laugh every time I see a TAP, because TAP is actually an old throwback for the tape that machines used to run on. Juan, have you ever run a machine with tape?
I got to see one. I still had tape on it, but I never did get to mess around with it. It had a whole bunch of little punched holes in it.
Yeah, that's how that. Yeah, you create the. It was paper tape, is what it was.
Yeah.
And I used to work at a place that had a really old turret press, and that's what it ran off. So that's what the TAP extension comes from, is the old tape files. It's people still use the extension, but nobody uses paper tape anymore. But and Ryan Ballard, he says, is there going to be a Gatton CNC Christmas challenge this year? There will be. We will be having the third annual, I think it's the third one, Gatton CNC Christmas challenge. And for those who maybe weren't around last year and don't know what I'm talking about, we do a Christmas challenge where you use your CNC to make a Christmas themed project and shoot a 10-minute or less video, upload it to YouTube, and then send me the link, and I put together a playlist and stuff, and then we get judges and pick winners and stuff like that, and I'll have prizes and all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, the challenge always runs from, let me look at the calendar here. It always starts on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, you can start earlier than that if you want. Just don't send me anything before
Black Friday,
because by gosh, I take holidays one at a time.
Black Friday is November 23rd this year.
Yeah. So November. So it'll start November 23rd, which is Black Friday, and will end at 11:59 p.m. right before the stroke of midnight, before Santa comes on Christmas Eve. So that's when I need to have your
entry in
for, send me the link and stuff. And let's see, that gives everybody, it's about the same, I guess, as last year as far as the number of days. But yeah. So Ryan Ballard, go ahead and get started on yours.
32 days.
We got, I can't remember how many we had last year, but we had some good stuff, really good stuff.
Yeah.
So
we could enter as many times as often or just once.
What have I done in the past? I don't even remember.
Go all out. More stuff.
I mean, I don't care if you do, well, I think what a lot of people would do, they do more than one project, but it'd all be in the same video, I think.
Right.
If you want to do more than one video, I don't care. But we'll have some prizes. I think we did. I can't even remember what all we gave. I'd have to go back and watch the old video of the show to see what we did. I know we do a bunch of gift cards and stuff like that. That's easiest to do. But we'll be doing the Christmas challenge. Rob, I think you've entered in the Christmas challenge.
I have. In fact, last year's one, I showed myself purchasing the file, the 3D file, on eBay, and the guy who created that file was not the one selling it on eBay, so he told me to please take that offline. So my video is not online anymore from that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I tell you, I don't know about you, Rob, but I'm obviously in the Gatton CNC Facebook group and the Garage Work CNC Facebook group, and I'm in one other one. But man, it seems like all of them, man, they get files and the next thing you know, they're, it just irritates me because if you didn't design that file, you don't have any right to give it to anybody. Yeah.
I'm about as cheap as they come too, but that's not.
Yeah,
right.
It's not cool.
But yeah, I don't know. There was some guy on there the other day that he'd bought a whole package, and then they had a big discussion about, well, most of that stuff was probably wasn't the original owners anyway, so and they were wanting to share it and all, and I'm like, nah, that's better than the guy who stole it the first time if you're doing that, as far as I'm concerned. But anyhow, that's just me. All right, I don't see any other questions over there. Is that a question, Brian Ballard? STL. I'm not sure if he's wanting us to talk about STLs or not.
Let's see, Ryan Ballard.
Yeah, if you do, since we talked about the Christmas challenge, if you do the Christmas challenge, please make sure hopefully it's something you're designing yourself, or if you do purchase something, make sure you're buying it legit. There's just so much junk out there that it just really gets me.
Yeah, and if you do use somebody's idea, which many of us obviously get all of our ideas from other people. There's rarely anything original anymore. Change it around. I mean, add your own twist to it. I mean, substantially. It makes for a much better. I've seen so many of the same, whether it's the Paradise box that everybody makes, or that's ridiculous Aztec calendar. I mean, yeah, design your own.
Ryan Ballard says people ask for STL files all the time on the 3D printing groups whenever a print is shown. Yeah, that's the bad thing about sharing sharing a picture of your project on Facebook.
Yeah.
One of the first 3 or 4 comments is going to be, "You got those files? Can I have them?
Yeah.
Gimme. It's like, come on, people, do something yourself.
Yeah.
That with the I mean, obviously because of what I do for a living now, it's really a sore spot with me when people start asking me for something, and I'm like, really?
You should probably start off with, are you willing to sell?
Give you all that stuff that I've spent hours and hours designing, and just give it to you just to save you some time. Yeah, I know I probably piss people off because they ask me for the SolidWorks files and all kinds of stuff, and I always tell them to take a hike. Kind of.
When you put that much effort into it, I mean, I don't mind selling them, but yeah, that's just not right.
I mean, and that's what I mean. Everybody's time is worth something. So if somebody spends half a day doing a 3D model, and they want to give it to somebody, that's their business. But to me, then that person shouldn't give it to anybody else.
Right.
I think common courtesy would be to, hey, are you willing to sell the file? And then if he wants to give it to you, he'll give it to you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I usually tell folks when they ask me if they can get SolidWorks files, I'm like, yeah, give me $200,000. I'll sell them one time, then I'll quit. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, well, I guess we're done talking about G code.
Yeah, pretty much.
We made it the whole hour.
Yep.
Talking about G code, M code, P code, L code, all that good stuff. Like I said, folks, I guess to sum up is learn a little bit. You'll learn some of it by accident just by watching your machine.
Dave, G code is a real thing. It's not a Gatton code.
No, that's a myth.
That's what I was under the impression. That's what it is.
Doesn't really stand for Gatton code, but yeah, you really. I mean, like I said, you'll learn a little bit by accident just from watching your machine and running your parts and stuff. You can't, if you do it for any length of time at all, you can't help but learn a little bit just by accident. But
Yeah.
For the most part, you got a good software, VCarve Pro, Aspire, whatever. You really don't need to worry about it too much. Anyhow. All righty. Well, I guess we're going to wrap this one up. Anybody got suggestions, more show? Oh, I know what I was going to do. I think I missed something here. Or no, I guess we did talk about it. All right, Jim Senecola, I hope we got your questions answered. I got your email. Maybe we need to do a show. You know, of course, it'd be loud running a router, so we'd probably have to do it ahead of time and just shoot video of it.
Yeah.
Of doing an inlay. Although there's lots of good videos out there. Peter's got a good one.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 or 4 other good ones out there on YouTube. That's the only problem with doing these shows is it's hard to find a topic that somebody already hadn't done a really good YouTube video on there.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, I used to agree with you on that. I mean, I used to think that way, the same thing. But as you and I have talked about a lot of times, what's old is new again. I've when I did the Learn CNC with Javi show on my YouTube channel, I've just about exhausted every type of basically vectric training from the most basic to a little bit of advanced. And yet there are people asking me all the time, where can I find a video on this? And I did that. Yeah, but all of a sudden everything's new again. If I were to do every single one of those videos fresh again, then all of a sudden people would see them for the first time. There are hundreds of videos of the same thing out there from everyone, and which is what makes YouTube such a beautiful source. But at the same time, if you continue to do all the new stuff, you're going to have an endless supply of audience, because there's always new people learning.
Well, yeah, that's true, because basically all I've done is, every few months just repeat something I've talked about before, because there's always a bunch of new folks that don't know it. Just like, we got Michael Murray in the house tonight, and he's just getting his going. So, him and all the other people that have got one recently are going to have, or maybe they even watched the stuff back when we did it, but it didn't make sense to them because they didn't have a machine to see how it all worked. But
right.
Jeff Connor put a comment over there that says jigs and fixtures and offsets show.
Yeah, I actually was considering preparing a couple videos for I would suggest a tiling episode on how to tile and how to do 3D double-sided prints. I mean, again, I have 2 different how-to videos on my channel on how to tile and on how to position, but there's nothing like a live show.
Yeah. I don't know about the jigs though, because there's, they're kind of.
Yeah, all you could really do with jigs is basic concepts of, and that wouldn't be so much CNC as it would just woodworking, how to make a jig.
Well, my favorite jig for the CNC is using the CNC to pocket MDF where you set your parts in it. Yeah. That's probably my favorite one.
That's true. That's very good.
I use one of those every time I do a Gatton CNC kit. So do that engraving on them. So
I got a quick question for you, Dave. I was looking at T-Tracks a few weeks ago, and suddenly that same day I saw you bought some. What do you think of your T-Tracks?
I like them. It's for the little over 2 years now, I've had nothing but a piece of plywood with holes drilled and 1/4 T-nuts underneath, and that's how I've been clamping. The problem I've had, I have 200 or so holes are on 4-inch centers. But the problem I had is because I am 99% of the time running the same size blank, because I'm usually cutting Gatton CNC kits, that I'd start wearing out the T-nuts. They'd start stripping or, you know, getting messed up. So I thought, well, I did the T-track in the MDF on my Garage Works out there. And of course, now I'm using that for a laser, so it doesn't really matter. But I decided I would do it here. So I bought the T-track from Orange Aluminum. It's probably the cheapest T-track you'll find. Uses just regular 1/4-20 hex nuts to slide in the stuff and then cut the strips of MDF. And I like it because I think it gives me a little more flexibility as far as running other stuff. And plus I can still put it in different spots, and I don't have to worry about it stripping out the threads like I'm used to with the T-nuts. So, but yeah, I like it.
What was the spacing you used on that?
I made mine. I actually, well, I have mine where from center to center on T-track is 4 inches.
Okay. And
when I cut my MDF, I said, well, okay, it's that T-track is 3/4 of an inch wide. So if I'm 4-inch centers, then the MDF that's going in between it is going to be 3 1/4. But what I did is I made it a little more than 3 1/4, but I also took my blade and made my I don't have a thing to show you here.
I was going to say though, I've seen that. So yeah, it overlaps a little bit on top of the.
Right. Yeah. I put just like a little bitty rabbit down the side of that MDF, and so when I put it on there, of course, I made sure that it was 1/2 inch high because that's how tall the T-track is. So when I glue down that MDF, it helps to hold down the T-track. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Raymond Dixon says, is there a preferred T-track pattern? That's all personal preference, how you lay that out. I just have all of mine run front to back. Now, there are some guys that I've seen that get those T things and get real crazy with it. But
yeah, it's funny you say that, because on the Colossus, on this one I have the Marius Hornberger clamps. On the Colossus, the Gatton CNC that I built, I actually made T-tracks 4 inches, and on the they're on the Y. They're all on the Y, just across, straight across. Because I figured that close together, I'm not going to have an issue. That was my biggest problem here. I figured, let me calculate. I went through all these calculations, and I decided, along with those clamping holes, I actually had original T-tracks in that thing that I made. I put it at 4 inches. I think it was at 12, at 24. I don't know. It was ridiculous, but no matter what, it was always too short for whatever piece I had, or too long. It was never in the right position. So the more clamps, the more clamping area you have, the better.
Yeah, when I did I don't know if you all remember my old metal Sidewinder back that used to be in my shop. It had like, my T-track was like, I don't know, 8 inches on center or something. I was all the time going, I can get it on this side, but I can't get it on. So I'd have to rig something longer or whatever. So that's why when I did it this time, I'm like, well, the holes were on a 4-inch grid. So I made sure that my T-track was at least, if you want to put it closer than that, that's even better probably. But I wouldn't put it any less than 4 inches.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm liking that. I've been cutting some different stuff, believe it or not, on that. I've kind of got my, we're getting off topic here, just kind of BSing, but I got 3 machines that I have my Gatton, and I cut, of course, the Gatton CNC kits, and then I use it as pretty much my main router. So anything wood, MDF, whatever I'm going to cut on that. Then I have another mid-sized Garage Works out there, and I pretty much use it just to cut HDPE. And the only reason I use it is because I've been lazy. I haven't made a dust shoe for it, so there's no dust collection. But I took some scrap plywood and made myself 4 things that, 4 little walls that stick up just below the bottom of the gantry. And I can just pull the front of it off. They're all notched where they, fit together like that. So I can pull the front one off, change my bits or whatever, and then close that back. And at least all the stuff, all the snow or whatever from the HDPE stays right there. So I can vacuum it up. So that's my HDPE machine. And then out in my shop around back, I've mounted my laser on it and kind of got it all dialed in and everything. And I'm just going to kind of leave it on there because I don't like having to change them out, and I didn't mount mine on the side or anything. So I got a laser and a machine that cuts plastic and then one for everything else pretty much. Of course, I got dust collection hooked up with the Gatton, so it's good. Got 4-inch line running on it. So any other questions before we get out of here, folks? I know we're gonna just shooting the breeze here now.
They asked about a small vacuum table project.
I don't. The only reason I would ever build one of them is if I needed one for something I'm doing, and so far I don't. So
yeah,
I thought about building one of those and just haven't. Peter's got Peter Pasqualo, CNC Nuts, has probably one of the best videos out there on a vacuum table. If you're looking for one.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I really gotta. I've been holding up on doing a video for that for the composite nailer because I don't have the actual nail gun. I've been looking for my nail gun, but my nail gun. Here's the funny thing: the nails, the brad nails. If I go with 18 gauge, they're only up to 7/16 thick. That's not going to hold a 3/4 piece down on the table. If I go 15 gauge, then it does. Then it goes to 1.5 inches, and that's fine for 3/4 inch, which are the nails I bought. Trouble is, 18 gauge nailers, yeah, they're a dime a dozen. They're straight, but the 15 gauge nailers, the brad nailers, are all angled. These nails are straight, so they take a specific nailer for it. So I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and pay the $200-300 for the actual gun. And
I'm sure they did that for a reason. So
yeah, absolutely. But I'm looking forward to getting it and using it.
Yeah, Ryan Ballard's asking me, are the 3D printers sold? Yeah, you notice they're gone. They are gone behind me. I just wasn't using them.
Yeah.
And I thought,
if you need a 3D part, you got a whole community that'll be happy to make one and send it to you. And
I kind of look at it.
How often do we need it?
When I thought I was one of the last ones to get into 3D printing, but once I got them, a lot of other folks that had Gatton CNCs and stuff started getting them too, and I'm like, I don't use mine, and if I get rid of them, I'm not worried because I know all kinds of people that can make it for me, and I just don't have a need for plastic stuff. I'm sorry, I just they were sitting there. The CR10 I probably hadn't used in 2 months. The Ender 3 I probably hadn't used in 3 months. And now I found a guy local that wanted them both, and he's using the heck out of them as far as I know. So, yeah, I tried to sell my all my lathe stuff, but I hadn't got any nibbles on that. And now I don't think I'm going to, because I cleaned up my shop today and I found out that if I rearrange my shop and stuff it over in the corner, it's not really in the way.
You mean the pen lathe?
Well, I bought a right before Thanksgiving last year. I bought a Nova Comet 2.
Ooh,
and I totaled it all up. I had about $1,500 worth of stuff. The lathe was a little under $5,000, and all the tool. I bought Easy Wood tools, a Easy Wood chuck. That's $400 right there for their fancy chuck.
Yep.
Yeah. But like everything, everybody wants a deal, and I'm like, mine's used very little, so I ain't giving it away. I'll store it in that other building. But I cleaned up my shop today and moved some stuff around, and I thought, I think if I move this over here to this side, stuff it in that corner, and I can still use it. It's not like I can't get to it and use it. So, I'm probably not going to keep it now. Let's see. Dave, did you stop making the 24x18? I stopped offering that one because I never sold any of them. Every once in a while I've sold a few, but they were a slow mover. And, when you got something that's a slow mover, you either discontinue it or whatever. I probably still got some parts out there. If somebody wanted one, I could probably put one together for them, maybe even two. I'm not sure how many parts I have. But yeah, really the biggest one is the one that sells the most. The middle one sells kind of okay, enough to keep parts for it, but the smallest one just everybody wanted something bigger, so I just discontinued it. All right, we need to get out of here.
Yep.
It's getting late. I'm holding everybody up here. Thank you all for everybody that hung around and tuned in to watch this exciting show about G-code.
Oh, it wasn't half bad.
I know, it was fun. So anyway, if you got anything out of this, leave a thumbs up on your way out if you would. I'd appreciate it. We already got 29 thumbs up, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. Thank you, Mr. Schuster, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Juan.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad y'all came on. And, of course, Javi. And thanks, Smiter Mike, for tuning in, too. So we're going to get out of here, and we will see y'all next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about for sure next week. You just have to watch for my Wednesday post on Facebook. We'll think of something. Who knows? We'll think of something. If you got a suggestion, leave it in the comments down below. So, all right, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all later. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, all.
Night.
Great evening.